On 27th July 2020, Mr. Anderson messaged me 2 x-rays of Clarisse, his 14-year-old female spayed Maltese. Clarisse had become lame after a walk downstairs 2 days ago. I viewed the 2 x-rays. In the first x-ray, Clarisse has a left hip dislocation. See the arrow showing that the left hip had popped out of the hip joint. This is called a dorsolateral dislocation of the hip. The second x-ray shows that it is the left femoral head of the femur that has popped out of the hip joint. The vet who took the x-rays had quoted her cost of surgery. The surgery is called femoral head osteotomy, FHO, or femoral head excision, to restore pain-free mobility to a diseased or damaged hip by removing the head and neck of the femur. However, the cost quoted by Singapore vets varies from $2,000 to $4,000. Did she fall down from a height or into a drain? I asked. Hip dislocations in dogs are usually due to traumatic falls from a height while being carried or from falling into a drain. This is a Be Kind to Pets veterinary educational videos brought to you by Toa Payoh Vets. Mr. Anderson lives in a 10th floor condo near the downtown in Singapore. His domestic helper walks the dog daily in the park for the past years. But something extraordinary happened to Clarisse during one walk 2 days ago. What happened? Did Clarisse fall while being carried? I messaged her. Mrs. Anderson messaged the reply. No, Clarisse didn't fall. My helper took her downstairs for a pee, and according to her, as they were walking back to the lift, Clarisse gave a loud yelp, which even my son heard from our home on the 10th floor. She loves running, playing hide and seek, and she also loves jumping onto the sofa and our beds too. Please bring the dog to Toa Payoh Vets for examination. I messaged Mrs. Anderson. On 27th July 2020, Mr. Anderson, a gardener who loves fashionable face masks, brought Clarisse for an examination. This was the era of the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak. Clarisse is 14 years old, a very old dog, he said. She is a high anesthetic risk candidate for hip surgery, as her heart may stop beating during the long FHO surgery. May I suggest Clarisse's leg limb be immobilized close to her body using the Ehmer Sling for 14 days? Mr. Anderson was relieved that there was a non-surgical treatment. Her dislocated hip joint will be manipulated back into the joint. She will be under a short 10 minutes of gas anesthesia for this manipulation. The anesthetic risk will be lower since the duration of anesthesia is short. Also, this procedure will be much less expensive, Dr. Daniel said. However, it is not guaranteed to solve the hip dislocation. Around 50% of the cases may be ineffective. Mr. Anderson signed a consent form for anesthesia and surgery. Ehmer Sling was performed. Clarisse went home on the same day. Clarisse was confined to a small area for 2 weeks. In this way, she would not dislodge the bandage and dislocate her hip. Healing of the damaged joint would take place during the 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, Mr. Anderson took off the Ehmer Sling and got an x-ray done by the vet clinic nearby. The x-ray showed that Dr. Daniel Singh had successfully reduced the hip dislocation using the Ehmer Sling. See the x-ray on 27th July showing the hip dislocated. The x-ray on 14th August shows no hip dislocation after 2 weeks of Ehmer Sling application. I messaged Mrs. Anderson for 3 videos of Clarisse walking, showing her left and right side, back and forth movements. She sent me these videos. Clarisse no longer has lameness on the left hind leg. The left hind leg is able to bear the weight as it touches the floor without pain. The Ehmer Sling had successfully enabled Clarisse to walk normally in this case. You will need to confine Clarisse to a small area for another 4 weeks. I messaged Mr. Anderson. Any strenuous activity will cause the left hip joint to dislocate. Mr. Anderson was very careful. I have my homemade sling for Clarisse. She messaged me her sling image. I suspect that the active old dog had sprinted to go home after the walk. She slipped on her left side, dislocating her left hip. Her screams were so loud that they could be heard on the 10th floor. There was a possibility of a fall when carried by the domestic helper, but only Clarisse would know. Ultimately, dogs cannot talk, just like dead men tell no tales. For more information, please visit our website or call in to our clinic. For more videos, please give this video a like and subscribe to us.